Well, in 2015, Justin Trudeau's tenure as Prime Minister started out with sunny ways. Now, 9 years later, he and his government have accumulated plenty of political battle scars, from blackface to SNC-Lavalin, ethics scandals, dealing with Donald Trump, convoys, ministerial missteps, and recently plunging poll numbers. So many are wondering if the Prime Minister can win again in the next election. Well, journalist and author Stephen Maher has had a front row seat to all of this from the Press Gallery in Ottawa, and he sat down with the Prime Minister and many more Ottawa insiders for his new book, The Prince, The Turbulent Reign of Justin Trudeau. It's on bookshelves or bookstore shelves this morning, and Stephen is live from Nova Scotia to talk more about the book today. Stephen, good to see you and talk to you about this book here. I gave it a pretty thorough read over the last several days, really giving some fascinating insight. But what struck me more, perhaps as a journalist, is the fact that you got to sit down for an hour with the Prime Minister here. He doesn't give a lot of interviews. I wonder what that conversation was like and what your sort of take on Trudeau is right now, 9 years almost into his mandate.
Well, Trudeau, it was the first time I'd sat down with him, I guess ever, but the first time I'd seen him in a long time. And I was struck by how vigorous and energetic he was. He was well prepared for the interview. He was, you interview people for a living. He was a good interview subject. So you would get what that means.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to give me useful answers. And I came out of there convinced that he is deadly serious about leading the Liberal Party into the next election. That he's enthusiastic about facing Pierre Poilievre, that he thinks the contrast in their visions for the country are a good subject for an election. But I also think that that's going to be very difficult, that you look closely at the polling numbers, and it's not that people are necessarily so enthusiastic about Pierre Poilievre, but there's a kind of fatigue with Mr. Trudeau after almost a decade in power. And you get the feeling it's going to be hard for him to proceed into that election.
Do you think he runs again?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you one thing I'm going to be watching is you have a by-election in Toronto coming up soon, Toronto-St. Paul, which should be among the safest Liberal seats in the country. And they're seeing some polling now that's showing that that's close. If they start losing that kind of thing, you have to think that maybe the people around Trudeau will see the writing on the wall. But it's hard to know. He is an extremely competitive person, and over again in his career, he has come from behind. He likes to see himself as the underdog. So, it's hard to know what's going on in his head.
Absolutely. Okay, so you spoke to the Prime Minister for an hour. Sort of what I understand is after you'd already spoken to some 200 other people interviewed for the book, insiders, opponents, friends, cabinet ministers, former cabinet ministers, getting some real insight into this. Did the portrayal or did what you hear about Justin Trudeau, do you think that's going to come as a surprise to people who don't follow Canadian politics perhaps as closely as you do from Ottawa or as I do as kind of a political junkie?
I hope it will help people get a better sense of how they're governed and what it's like to be in those rooms, making these decisions, dealing with crises. I find that kind of stuff interesting because when you're a journalist watching it close, you watching it from up close, you basically see what a lot of the time what they want to show you. And I've been able to talk to enough people who feel a sense of obligation to help create a historical record, the people that I'm talking to. So they somewhat reluctantly, some cases will say, well, okay, I'll tell you, here's what it was like when blackface broke, for example, or the SNC-Lavalin matter. And also, those are things that were difficult moments. There's also moments, as for instance, with the Justin Trudeau's management of Donald Trump and the NAFTA renegotiations, where you get a sense of a team that's functioning very highly and managing something difficult well.
It's a close-knit team, that's for sure. And the blackface insights are interesting, the fact that they knew that some of these pictures at least existed and were kind of almost waiting for that story to break. But I want to talk, Stephen, about the fact you've called the book The Prince. You make references to Machiavelli, ahead of each of the chapters here. What is your sort of thesis about Justin Trudeau being a prince or princely?
So the idea is that he is unlike most of the people that we know in our lives, in that he has grown up in the seat of power. His father was Prime Minister, and that connection, the connection that gave him to the Canadian people, is what allowed him to do this extraordinary thing. A former high school teacher leading the third party to a majority government in 2015. That's something that had never happened before, and it's at the heart of his political success. And also, then subsequently, we see him behaving in ways that are sort of princely. He has princely confidence, princely charisma, princely courage, but also princely capriciousness, princely vanity, princely sense of entitlement. So I see it as neither positive nor negative, but sort of a frame for thinking about this person who is unlike most of the people that we know.
Well, this will certainly be a handy frame of reference, I assume, for Canadians and for Canadian voters going forward. Stephen Maher, good luck with the book out on shelves today, The Prince, The Turbulent Reign of Justin Trudeau. Appreciate this conversation, Stephen. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.